For today's DC Multiverse review, we are looking at Azrael. Before I talk about the accessories and the figure, let's take a quick look at the data profile card. So this is actually the one that came with the Walmart Gold Label version. The data profile card that he comes with is actually still in the box because I'm assuming that the read-up description on the back is exactly identical, so there's no point of taking that out. I'm just going to read the one that I already have out. So before we do that, let's admire this beautiful comic book artwork of Azrael. It's beautiful. And on the bottom right here, it says Azrael Batman armor from Batman Knightfall. And on the back side, we do have our read-up. His real name is Jean-Paul Valley, and it reads, upon his father's death, college student Jean-Paul Valley learns that he had been genetically altered and trained since birth by a secret society known as the Order of St. Dumas. They then activate his psychological conditioning, forcing him to become their most elite enforcer, Azrael. While on a mission in Gotham City, Azrael crosses paths with Batman, and soon turns on the Order to join with the Dark Knight. Later, when Bruce Wayne is paralyzed by Bane, Bruce asks Jean-Paul to become Batman for some time. And that's a pretty good read-up on who Jean-Paul Valley is as a character, aka Azrael. And one thing that is actually happening, they are adapting this storyline into an animated movie. I don't know if it's like a one-part movie or it's going to be multiple parts. It has to be multiple parts, I think, because there's like a few layers to the story, if I remember correctly. It's been a long time since I read Batman Knightfall, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't just that. Do correct me in the comments below. But there is the data profile card. Let's move on to the accessories now. And to correct myself, there are no accessories with this figure, which we are going to rant about because I don't know why they always do this. So this is an action figure that retails for $27 now. With tax and everything, I believe it's like around $28, which is a lot of money for an action figure. We're paying pretty much $30 very soon for a single action figure here, and they did not decide to give him the bare minimum of accessories. Yes, the sculpt work is great and all, which we will talk about that in the aesthetics portion, but this is the same mold that we have seen before, right? And back when this figure came out, it was only $20, which even for $20 for having no accessories, that's still a bad thing in my opinion. But this mold has received fist hands before. And let's bring in this other Azrael, which I did make a review on quite a long time ago. I believe this was like the third video I uploaded. So, as you can see, this guy has fist hands. They are actually made for this figure. They have the sculpt. They have everything. So, why couldn't they have taken those same fist hands, painted some blue on them, and pack it in with this figure? Because this would have been the better version to actually just, put a little bit more into, right? Because everybody's been waiting for a more color accurate design of this Azrael, because we've gotten so many of them over the years that, the original one, I remember when this got announced, I was excited for it, but, most people were not into it because the colors were very bright and different from, the source material image you see back there. Now that we have an accurate one, closely resembling this picture when it comes to the colors, why couldn't we have gotten the hands to go with it as well? But because they did not do that, if you do want to take pictures and pose him with fist hands, you're gonna have to have this red one right here, which is not great because I know some people missed out on this red version because when it came out, it sold out pretty fast. That is a problem. If you don't have this version, you won't be able to hand swap them, because I actually tested if I can take the hands off and swap it with these ones. They work, and I will show that in the video later of how he looks like with the fist hands, even if, the colors are not accurate because there's no blue on here, right? But it still works. You can just, make it work somehow, but again, you have to have that version of the Azrael figure in order to make this happen, because they decided not to give him fist hands. That's everything I have to say about this part. Let's move on to the aesthetics of this figure. And taking a closer look at Azrael here, let's start with the aesthetics of the overall sculpt. I think they did a pretty good job with the sculpt details of this figure. Now, of course, this is not the Mafex version. That one also looks pretty cool as well. But you have to remember, that figure costs more money than this one. So for a budgeted version of Azrael, this is definitely a good one to pick up if you don't want to spend over like 100 something. I don't remember how much the Mafex one cost, but I know it's not cheap. And this figure is already not cheap either. So I'm just saying, like, if you're going to want to spend a little bit less, I think this one is the good one to go with because, you know, in terms of all the sculpt details, it does work. Now, of course, it's not entirely accurate to the comic book artwork you see on the card and also on the back of the box. There are some details that have been changed a little bit, and also the proportions of his arms are slightly different, but I think it still works overall. It's not like the worst changes. And when it comes to like sculpted molds that they have made for a lot of their figures, this one is one of my favorites because they made this mainly for Azrael, or this version of Azrael, and I just love the entire look of it. So yeah, let's get into the details. So for his upper part right here, where his cape, and then he has his collar piece, whatever this is supposed to be, I got no clue. It does have this nice sort of pink color to it. It's like a metallic sort of silver, kinda, like it does have a shine to it. Even this gold part right here has a little bit of a shine. And here's the interior of his neck. You do have some sculpted details right there, which connect to the rest of his suit. And then for his head sculpt, you got the red eyes, you got the entire blue mask on, which is pretty much a very simple head sculpt because there's not a whole lot of details going on here. And that's mainly because that's what he looks like in the comic book artwork. And then for the armor parts down here, you do have all the lines, which in the artwork, they just look like lines. But I like the fact that they actually sculpted like ridges in between to make it look more realistic, which is actually a nice touch. And then for his shoulders, he does have the rounded shoulder parts similar to the artwork. And then he has this part right here that connects to his arm, where we see this gray color part of the suit. And then we get to see the awesome sculpted gauntlets. Let me just try to show them better. And I actually like the color choices this time. The darker metallic blue, well, it's not exactly metallic. It just has like a shine to it. I'm not sure what kind of paint they used. The mix here is just great. I love that the colors contrast each other. And then you get to see his hands, where you got some blues down here, and then there's a little bit of the gold color part of the like the arm, right? And then you got the hands with the silver fingers. Like, it's just really cool to see some color contrast, because the other version, I'm just going to bring it in because there's a lot of comparing here, and we will do more comparisons later. You can see that for the original release of this figure, his hands are just basically all flat blue. Like, there's not even any silver to it, but that also is because the entire look of this figure doesn't really have much of a metallicness going on. So with this 3.0, or actually this is a 2.0, let's call it a 2.0. They have fixed a lot of those issues that I think some people really disliked about that first version, and they actually put more effort into the paint. So I like the fact that we have color contrasts going on here with the gauntlet area to his hands. That is a good thing. And then for his torso here, with this waist part, it's not the best when it comes to, like, you know, sculpted muscles, because of course in the artwork the muscles are very exaggerated. This just looks more like a layered piece that's part of his armor, more than, like, you know, what we see in this artwork right here. Let me just bring this in, right? You can see it's a little bit different. And then the blue part of his cape, it doesn't go all the way down to the middle here. It just stops like right on the top here. So they did do some slight changes, but I think it's because, you know, this part does have a cut up here, so the upper torso can rotate. So that's probably why they had to sacrifice a little bit of the sculpt details for like where these things would go. Because if this was, you know, connected down here, there would be like a mismatch and it probably wouldn't look good when you rotate it. So I can understand why they changed it. And the reason why they did it this way is because underneath there's the waist joints, and this hides away the waist joint and all the cuts, kinda. So the changes are not bad. Now we do have pockets here. This is his like utility belt, whatever you want to call it. This is where he puts his stuff in there. He also has the pockets right here. I don't know what this is called. It's like strap pockets for his leg, which I think are nicely sculpted as well. It is the same sculpt as the other figure, but I'm just saying they did a really good job here with the sculpt because everything's all like three-dimensional. So it's really nice to see that. And then for his other arm, we can see the same exact details as well. And then let's go down to his legs. His legs are very simple. There's not a whole lot going on down here. There's not much colors. It's all gray. And he does have these sort of, you know, these things, whatever they're called, similar to what Batman has on his arms, right? This is the same exact idea. So this is just his version of the suit. Now, one thing I wish they did change. It would have been great if they actually gave him a cloth wire cape. Now, I'm not saying like they need to retool this top part. There have been cases where, you know, you can keep some of the sculpt work of the cape like this, but also add a cloth into the back, because you can see right back here, there is like this separation, right? Because this connects to the cape. It's like glued on. If they were to find a way to somehow attach this top, you know, plastic part to a cloth wire cape, it would have made this 2.0 even better when it comes to posing. Because the problem with these soft plastic capes is that they're pre-sculpted. You can't really do much with them when it comes to posing. So that is pretty much the downside here, which I don't like. But at least the paint this time looks better. Everything has a shine to it, which I think that's what makes this figure looks cool. Because, you know, the other one was just flat blue everywhere. Like nothing was like shiny on it. I think this is probably the best 2.0 for this version of the Azrael suit from this company. Unfortunately, though, if you are trying to get this figure still, it is not going to be easy because this guy sold out so quickly. And if you are trying to find them in the stores, I do wish you good luck because I haven't actually seen any copies of this figure in my retail stores yet. I haven't even found any of them. I was just hoping that if I can spot one, that would be cool. Even though I already had this guy pre-ordered, I hope you do find one because this figure is actually a really fun one to have for the collection. But that's pretty much most of the aesthetics for this guy. I really can't point out anything else because majority of the sculpt and the mold is pretty much the same thing from this original version. It's just the colors have made this mold look even better than the first version. That is all I can really point out here. So, yeah, I think they did a good job overall with the entirety of it. This is a good budgeted version of Azrael. But if you don't like this version and you still prefer the Mafex one, then of course, you know, you can go with that as well. So, all right, let's move on to the articulation now. For the articulation, let's start off with his head sculpt. So can Azrael look up? I believe he can. Yes, he can. He can look up a good bit. That's not too bad. Can he look down? Not exactly the best, but you know, it still kind of works from that angle. He is actually staring down a little bit. Turning his head left and right, he can do. It doesn't actually run into the... Well, it does run into it a little bit, but at least he can actually still turn his head. Tilting his head side to side, it also works. So the overall articulation with his head sculpt is decent, but there is a little bit of a restriction because of the collar piece up here. Whatever you want to call this thing. I usually just call it a collar. And for his arm... Let's see how far this stretches out. So he can lean out the arm this much. Not too bad. Can he swing his arms back and forth? No, he cannot because it will run into the cape. And that is exactly what I mean. They could have given him a cloth wire cape to basically, you know, allow him to have more mobility, in my opinion. But they didn't do that. So now, when you move his arms back and forth like this, you're going to just run into the plastic cape because it's already pre-molded that way. He does have upper bicep swivels. He does have double jointed in the arms. He also has a swivel in the hands as well as wrist articulation, which I believe works. You just make sure that it does because, you know, sometimes the joints are tight. Okay, they do work. So as you can see, there's up and down. Right. So there's that. Sorry for the interruption right there. As I was gonna say, that is pretty much all the articulation for his arms, just your standard articulation. And now let's move on to the articulation of the torso and of course the waist. So let's start with the upper torso cut because he does have one. He can rotate pretty freely, which is good because sometimes the rotation could be pretty stiff. Can he lean forward? No, he could barely lean forward at all, which is not great. So if you want him to lean forward a lot more, you're going to have to modify the joint inside here by carving out more room so the joint can actually move a lot more. Leaning back, he can lean back a little bit. So yeah, this isn't great because if you're actually going to try to get him into like some cool action poses where he's actually leaning forward and standing in a certain position, it is not going to be possible with this limitation right here. Like, that barely gives you much movement at all. And I'm not going to like force it because I can tell that this is already the limit for leaning forward, which is not great at all. That is just such a bad thing as usual. Because like sometimes with these figures, they can lean forward and lean back really good, but sometimes they can't. I don't know why they always like change that, but it is what it is. And then for the rotation down here with the waist, my copy is still brand new, but you can see it rotates a little bit, but it should be able to rotate a lot more. Oh, there we go. A little bit right there. So if you do have stiffness issues with that joint, my recommendation is to use a hairdryer or use a little bit of hot water, but do it in a cautious way. Just be careful because if you're not careful, you could actually break something, and that would not be great. All right, let's talk about the articulation for his legs now. Can he do the splits? That is the big question here. Oh, that's a pretty good spread with the legs. Yeah, it's not like a full split, but like, you know, that's better than some figures. They can't even spread their legs out that much. All right, what about kicking? I say that's a decent kick. You can get him to kick Bane, which we do have right here. I don't know if he's going to fit in frame, but there he is. He also has double jointed in the legs. Yes, he does. They do work. And then for his feet, he does have articulation, swivel, and toe articulation. Okay, come on. Toe articulation, right? It works. There we go. Sometimes the toe articulation could be really stiff as well, which is another problem with this guy. Or just with action figures in general. So if you do have those issues, again, I recommend the hairdryer or some hot water. Just do it carefully. Okay, that is pretty much all the articulation. Oh, no! This is the second. No, this is more than the second time now. The last review, we forgot. Does he have upper thigh swivels every single time? I always forget this. Oh, they kind of move. Okay, so there is a little bit, but they're like really stiff. But they don't always work, so that is another issue right there. Okay, man, I caught myself right there, almost forgetting that one last articulation point. But there it is. That is all the articulation that Azrael has. And yeah, you could get him into some action poses, but there is going to be some limitations and maybe some modifications that you might have to do to this figure in order to get the best range of motion. That's all I'm going to say about the articulation. Now, let's move on to some comparisons. For the first comparison, here is the 2.0 Azrael next to the 1.0 version. And as you can see, the colors are very different. The colors just look better on this 2.0 version because there is the shine to it and there is some color contrast that is actually clearly visible. But when you look back to this 1.0 version, there's not much of a color contrast, which is kind of the big problem, right? You look at the collar piece, it's all blue. Here, it's silver and then some blue. So having some of that color breakage really does make the suit pops more than what they did here. Now, I don't know why they painted this original one in this color. I don't really know the decision to it. Is it because it's just coincidental that's a Walmart exclusive, and as you've seen the Walmart logo, it is blue and yellow, which there is blue and there is some yellow right with the belts. I don't know, but the colors just stand out more on this one because, like, especially the gold areas, you can see it's like a dark color gold, but on this one's like a brighter color gold. And I think I like this more than this because this just makes the gold look more like not even gold. I don't even know what to call it. So, yeah, this 2.0 version is definitely the better one out of all these Azrael figures that we have gotten when it comes to this mold. Yeah, this one's just the better one. Now, of course, the other one that they released, which was the black and gold color one, that's a little bit different, right? You don't have to compare that to these two. But because these two are technically supposed to be, you know, based on the source material from this artwork right here, well, yeah, this is definitely the better one to go with if you want it to be closer to the actual colors. But there it is. There's the comparisons between these two figures. And in the end of the day, I'm happy having both of them. I don't mind having the same figure twice, even if the colors are different. Okay, so that is the first comparison. Let me just move them out of the way. Now let's bring in the other suit. Now this one is completely different. It is using the same body buck, but he's not the same suit. And hopefully he can stand. This is great. Like, this is basically what I'm talking about here. And I just love this so much, right? Having both of these suits in their different colors and, of course, a different look here because this is a completely, like, a second generation of this suit, I suppose. I don't remember. It's been too long since I read this comic. But, yeah, having both of them together is just great. So, there it is. Azrael Batman armor and the other Azrael Batman armor from the Knight's End storyline. And now, before I get to the final comparison, I do want to put this one thing in this part. Before I forget, I do want to show the fist hands on this guy. So, as promised, let me just pop these hands off. And I am going to have to edit this part out so we can get the tedious stuff out of the way. And then you'll see what he looks like with the fist hands. And we're back. And as you can see, both of the fist hands are equipped to this figure. And they work. This is what I'm saying. Like, why couldn't they have included the fist hands? Look at how good he looks with the fist hands actually equipped to him, even if they are missing the blues. I mean, it's there. It works for, like, action poses and stuff if you want to have him fighting somebody, right? I don't understand why they didn't give him these hands, because they clearly made them for this mold. So, you know, just having these hands are cool and all, but if you're going to do some action poses, you need other hand options. So there it is. There he is with the freaking fist hands. Here's another better look at it up close. Let me just show you, right? You see that? Look at that. There we go. That is the fist hands equipped to Azrael. And now let's move on to the final comparison, or the final two comparisons. So let me just put them right over here. Just move them. And let me just bring in this other figure. So here he is next to the Wonder Woman from the Godzilla 2-pack, which I did also get. And for the final comparison, here he is next to Bane, which barely fits in frame. But as you can see, yeah, this works. So if you want to have him duke it out with Bane, you got the fist hands for it. Well, you don't have the fist hands. You got to get it from the other figure. But if you do have the other figure and you pop out the fist hands, swap it with this guy, and you want to do some cool photos against Bane, there you go. Right? This is an option for you to do. So I am happy with the way this figure turned out in terms of everything else, but I am disappointed that he didn't come with any accessories. But in the end of the day, this is how things have been with Mcfarlane Toys as the license is winding down. And that is going to wrap up today's comparison and today's review. So, if you found today's review informative, do give this video a like. If you want to subscribe to the channel for more action figure content and whatever else I do on here, it would be much appreciated. And with that said, take care, and I will see you in the next video.